Among grandmasters, it's Andre Deviatkin who really likes the variation with h6, and he has used it to trick many opponents over the years. We're going to see a game he played in Dos Semanas in 2010, and his opponent is Federico Perez Ponce, who's grades 2390, so international master standard, playing white. Deviatkin himself is graded 2587, or was at the time, and he's playing black. Okay, well the game kicked off with e4, c6, d4, d5, white played knight c3. It doesn't matter whether he plays knight c3 or knight d2, that's nice for us. Takes, takes, and now h6. And in this particular game, I think white plays the move the majority of your opponents will respond to h6 with, just knight f3. White contents himself with normal development, and he's looking to go back into a position which is very similar to the main line. But it's not quite the main line. And Deviatkin shows why. After bishop f5, white brings his knight back to g3, and now black gets to put his bishop on h7 in one go. Anybody who's played the Capablanca variation for any length of time will know the sequence h4, h6, h5, and then bishop h7, followed by bishop d3, tends to favour white, because the pawn on h5 has a cramping influence on the black king side. So by playing this way, black avoids this dangerous variation, and forces white back into a worse variation of the main line than he normally could expect. Perez Ponce plays bishop d3, black of course takes this, and now just develops in normal Caro Kann fashion, having tricked white into this slightly less dangerous variation, where white castles on the king side. But you see, white would normally be shaping up for a king side attack in this position. Here, there's no king side attack to be seen. So, he has to change strategy. Rook he1 was played, bishop e7, king b1, and now Deviatkin took the bold decision to castle on the king side. Well, again, this is the sort of thing you see in the main line of the Caro Kann. Here, I think black can play this move in relative safety, because a king side attack from white seems a long way off. Black has the usual Caro Kann compact formation, and now he's looking to break free with c5, which is again the traditional breakout move in this type of position. White played knight e4. Why does he do this? Well, the thing is, the knight on g3 is actually quite poorly placed. It's not a particularly good piece in this situation. So white decides to get rid of his bad piece. And now Deviatkin breaks free with c5. So this is an absolutely typical sequence in this variation, and I would argue it's much better for black than the normal lines. He has equalised with ease. Perez took on f6, and black recaptured with the knight, and white now played bishop f4. Again, the bishop on d2 finds itself in slightly the wrong spot, and black is getting ready to open lines on the queen side and hopefully start some initiative on the c file. So with bishop f4, I guess white is offering exchanges. Black doesn't want to take on d4 just yet. Queen b6 was played, and now seeing the moves rook a c8 coming up, or rook f d8, white decides to take on c5 and put his bishop in on d6. Well, I don't think this was a particularly good decision, because the black queen's attacking f2, and in the game Deviatkin calls white's bluff by taking on d6 and taking on f2. If we just drop back to queen takes c5, there's no doubt in my mind white could have made a better move here simply by playing something like queen to e2. But there's no doubt about it, black is absolutely fine. He can play either of his rooks to c8 or d8 with a pretty good position. So bishop d6 was played. Takes, takes, takes on f2. White played rook d2, and Deviatkin was happy to angle for the endgame with queen b6. White took, but of course the best that white can get out of this position is now a draw, and we're looking to black to display some technique, which, being a strong grandmaster, Deviatkin duly does. He first of all plays b5, rook e d1, and now he more or less forces exchanges or a concession with knight d5. White doesn't really want to take on a6 in this position, so he goes rook d7, and now black plays b4. And the point of this is that after rook takes b7, we go rook f a8 with a lot of pressure on a2. So after rook f1, trying to get the initiative, black went f6, And only now after knight g6 did he get rook f8 in. Rook takes b7, rook takes a2. A position like this could have arisen earlier, but white thinks, okay, I'm going to simplify here, get the rooks off at least, and try and draw this position. But the problem is he's just finding himself a pawn down. Yes, the white king is quite close to that pawn on b4, but the knight on d5 is securely protecting the pawn. So basically this is just a pawn down endgame for white. And no matter how much white wriggles here, he's at the mercy of black's technique. And the way black's going to win this is to push the kingside pawns. He's got a 4-2 majority on the king side, so as long as he can mobilise those pawns at the right moment, he should be winning this fairly comfortably. As I say, white can wriggle for a little while. It really is just a question of black getting coordinated and organised. And this is what he does with f5. And now we've suddenly reached a position which I think we can consider resignable for white. There are no more tricks, and black is just going to push those pawns. And that's what happens in the rest of this game. Black just gets out of the pin. Black pushes on with e4. You can see white's getting in trouble, further and further in trouble as those pawns come up the board. And there's nothing difficult about the rest of this game. He's a pawn down for nothing, white, and cannot really escape. So king came to c4, f4, thank you very much, g4 blocking. We get a check. Now the knight improves itself to the full. Now knight d2 is a threat. King takes b4, rook takes c2. Black even gets to activate the rook. Knight comes into d2 anyway. Knight e1. As you can see, the rook has no squares. And now rook c1 completes the technical exercise, as both of white's pieces are on pre. So the lesson learned from this game, if we go back right to the opening, is that knight f3 should be answered by bishop f5, and then knight g3, bishop h7 takes black back into a version of the Capablanca main line, but one in which A, he's got an extra move, and B, white has been talked out of this cramping advance h4, h5. So all useful ideas for